The light of the interrogation lamp was a merciless star, burning away shadows but offering no warmth. Before it, projected in holographic shimmer, stood the accused, her form elegant even under duress, her eyes holding galaxies of unreadable sorrow. The accused, known only as Sun Singer, a synthesized voice droned, cold and impartial, stands charged with memory theft and high treason against the Stellar Compact. Evidence suggests a lineage far older, far more intertwined with humanity's lost past than any dare admit, a past that could unravel the very fabric of interstellar law. The image flickered, then dissolved, not into courtroom silence, but into the shriek of tearing metal and the percussive thunder of explosions. Kaelen Vance, terraforming specialist, serial skeptic, and currently unwilling astronaut, was violently thrown against a bulkhead as the bridge section of the Stardust Drifter tore itself free from the dying colony ship. Red emergency lights pulsed like a failing heartbeat, painting the cramped, freezing compartment in strokes of crimson and shadow. Alarms blared, a chorus of electronic despair. Outside the fractured viewport, stars tumbled in a dizzying, silent ballad amidst a growing cloud of debris that had, moments ago, been a vessel of hope for 10,000 souls. Damn it all to the void. Kaelen spat, hauling himself upright, his knuckles white as he gripped a handhold. The air tasted of ozone fear and the metallic tang of something burning out. Every system readout on the surviving console flickered erratically, most trending towards zero. Oxygen levels were plummeting. Life support was a cruel joke. Across the chaotic coffin-sized space, the alien female Lyra'nova was a still point in the maelstrom. Her skin, a delicate pearl that seemed to shimmer with an internal luminescence, was dusted with grime. Large, dark eyes, pupils like nebulae, surveyed the carnage with an unnerving calm that Kaelen found both irritating and strangely compelling. She clutched a small, intricately carved cylindrical object to her chest, as if it were the only anchor in this sea of catastrophe. He'd seen her in the passenger manifest Zelithian, designation cultural observer. Right now, she looked more like a survivor clinging to the last spar of a shipwreck. Well, cultural observer. Kaelen grunted, his voice hoarse, yanking at a panel to expose a mess of fried circuits. Anything in your advanced alien observations tell you how to undestroy a starship? Or, failing that, how to breathe vacuum? He didn't expect an answer, not a useful one anyway. His skepticism of authority extended to anyone who called themselves an observer. Without getting their hands dirty, Lyra'nova tilted her head, a gesture that might have been curiosity or confusion. A low, almost sub-audible hum emanated from her, a resonant frequency that vibrated in Kaelen's teeth. He felt a sudden, inexplicable wave of profound sorrow wash over him, so potent it almost buckled his knees. It wasn't his own, his was a more practical, angry despair. This was ancient vast. He shook his head, blaming the G-forces, the lack of oxygen. The alien then released a faint, almost imperceptible scent, like crushed star lilies and ozone. It was unsettling. He saw her hand, slender and long-fingered, move towards a compartment on her sleek, silver-gray suit, a protective, unconscious gesture. The immediate priority was survival, however fleeting. Kaelen's hands, calloused from years of wrestling with stubborn terraforming machinery, flew over the controls, or what was left of them. Ship's computer is gone. Navigation offline. Long-range comms, how? Might as well shout into a bucket. He slammed a fist against a dead panel. Another stellar example of corporate cost-cutting on critical systems. Bet the CEO's escape pod had gold-plated toilets. Lyra watched him, her expression unreadable. The Zelithians, Kaelen vaguely recalled from the briefing packets, relied less on spoken language for nuanced communication, preferring a complex interplay of pheromonal signals, subtle frequency shifts, and empathic resonance, all utterly useless to a human whose primary mode of communication was sarcasm and shouted technical jargon. She took a hesitant step towards him, then offered a small, crystalline pouch from her belt. Inside, Kaelen could see what looked like nutrient paste. Her meaning was clear, even if the specific cultural etiquette was lost on him. He just grunted, later, if there is a later. His skepticism was a shield, honed by years of dealing with bureaucratic incompetence and corporate greed. But beneath it, a stubborn ember of hope always glowed. He wouldn't go down without a fight. He found a manual override for the emergency atmospheric recyclers, wrestling with a stiff lever. Come on, you piece of junk. Suddenly, a proximity alert, weak but insistent, chirped from a barely functioning sensor. Kaelen froze. On the cracked viewport, a flicker of light resolved into a distant, Menacing shape a sleek, black vessel, knife-edged and predatory. "Oh, you have got to be kidding me," he breathed. As if things weren't bad enough. He recognized the silhouette. Chronos Guild. Scavengers, pirates. Memory thieves, whispers in the dark corners of the galaxy. What were they doing here? Had they caused the Stardust Drifter's destruction? Power down everything. Kaelen hissed, his earlier irritation forgotten, replaced by a primal urgency. Now, they're scanning the debris field. He scrambled to kill the few remaining lights, plunging them into near-total darkness, save for the faint glow of distant nebulae through the viewport. Lyra, without a word, touched a control on her suit, and the faint luminescence of her skin dimmed, her form becoming a mere silhouette against the starfield. The silence in the crippled bridge section became absolute, save for their ragged breathing and the frantic thump of Kaelen's heart. The oxygen level indicator, a faint red line, continued its inexorable downward creep. Minutes stretched into an eternity. Kaelen could feel Lyra's presence beside him in the dark, a subtle warmth, that strange low hum now barely a tremor. He found himself holding his breath, listening not just for the guild ship, but for something from her. Then, just as the guild ship seemed to be moving off, Lyra began to sing. It wasn't a vocalization, not in any human sense. It was a pure, resonant frequency that filled the tiny space, vibrating through the metal hull, through Kaelen's bones. It was impossibly complex, a cascade of harmonics that seemed to soothe the very air around them. The faltering atmospheric recyclers, which had been sputtering and gasping, suddenly hummed with a slightly more regular rhythm. The acrid smell in the air lessened, just a fraction. Even the frantic edge of Kaelen's own panic seemed to dull, replaced by a strange, enforced calm. He looked towards her silhouette in the dim light, a new kind of shock registering. What in the seven hells was she? When the guild ship finally vanished from their limited sensors, Kaelen let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding for an eternity. What was that? He managed, his voice raspy. Lyra's voice, when it came, was soft, melodic, filtered through the ship's damaged universal translator, which flickered back to life with a crackle. A song of stillness. To quiet the unsettled air. She paused. The Chronos Guild, they seek what is lost. Or what is carried. Her gaze flickered to the cylindrical object she still held. I was a passenger, entrusted with echoes. Echoes of many coups. Kaelen felt a chill despite the cold. This was getting weirder by the minute. What kind of echoes? And why would the guild want them enough to blow up a colony ship? He was a terraformer. He dealt with rocks, atmospheres, dormant biospheres. Not cryptic aliens and interstellar pirates. Lyra's large eyes seemed to look right through him. Some echoes are too precious to be forgotten. Some too dangerous to be remembered by those who would misuse them. She hesitated, then her head tilted slightly. Your vessel, it carried data, old data, about origins. Kaelen frowned. What are you talking about? He was tired, oxygen-deprived, and his patience for riddles was non-existent. They needed a plan, a way out, not philosophical musings. Their lifeboat was a ticking clock. The guild patrol might return. He pushed himself towards the main console, trying to coax some life out of the navigation systems. They had to risk a short burn, try to hide in the denser part of the asteroid field they were drifting towards. There was a resonance. In the ship's logs, Lyra continued, her voice gaining a touch more urgency. She moved to a secondary console, her slender fingers dancing over the damaged interface with surprising familiarity. A section of the screen flickered, displaying corrupted data streams. Anomalies, genetic markers, forgotten links. Kaelen grunted, trying to manually input ignition sequences for the maneuvering thrusters. Great, just what we need. A history lesson while we're about to become history ourselves. But Lyra persisted, her strange hum intensifying slightly, as if focusing her concentration. She managed to isolate a few fragmented files pre-voyage scans, deep archive data flagged as anomalous sentient species research. One symbol, a spiraling galaxy with a single, bright star at its core, pulsed on the screen. Lyra gasped, a soft intake of breath. Her hand went to her chest, where a similar, though more stylized, symbol was subtly embossed on her suit. The first song, she whispered, her voice filled with an awe that cut through Kaelen's cynicism. The seed star. It is spoken of in our oldest chronicles. The legend of the wanderers. Kaelen paused, the ignition sequence half entered. He looked from the symbol on the screen to Lyra, whose eyes were wide, luminous in the dim light. What are you talking about? The data, she said, her gaze fixed on the corrupted files. It speaks of a progenitor race, ancient, lost. They seeded many worlds. Your people, my people, we are divergent paths from the same source. We are related, Kaelen Vance. The words hung in the freezing air of the dying bridge. Kaelen stared at her, then at the screen, then back at her. Related? You're telling me humans and Zelithians were cosmic cousins? After all this first contact protocol, all the xenophobic warnings from Earth Central? A humorless laugh escaped him. Well, that's just perfect. Stranded in a tin can with my long-lost space aunt. Lyra didn't seem to register his sarcasm. The revelation for her was clearly profound. The first song speaks of it, two paths. Those who look to the stars and those who nurtured the soil. We are echoes of that choice. She looked at him, and for the first time, he saw not an alien, but someone sharing an incredible, terrifying predicament. This changes the shape of the silence between our stars. The momentary awe was shattered by another proximity alert, louder this time. The Chronos Guild ship was returning, and it was closer. No time for family reunions. Kaelen snapped, adrenaline surging. We need to move now? He slammed the ignition sequence home. The maneuvering thrusters sputtered, then fired with a jolt, sending their tiny lifeboat careening towards the looming shadows of the asteroid field. The discovery of their shared ancestry, as mind-boggling as it was, didn't magically solve their problems. If anything, it deepened the mystery of the Guild's attack. Were they after Lyra specifically? Or this Ark of Souls she carried? Or was this shared lineage itself the target? Kaelen didn't have answers, only a growing certainty that their survival depended on trusting this strange, song-weaving alien who was, apparently, kin. The confines of the lifeboat, already suffocating, now felt charged with this new, uncomfortable intimacy. Cooperation wasn't just essential, it was their only path through the darkness. Navigating the asteroid field was a terrifying dance of near misses. Kaelen wrestled with the dying controls, the lifeboat bucking and groaning with every desperate maneuver. Lyra, seated beside him, was an unexpected asset. Her eyes were closed, her body swaying slightly, that low hum now a constant thrum. To the left, Kaelen Vance. She'd murmur, her voice calm despite the chaos. There is a shadow, a coldness, a guild probe. Or, the larger asteroid ahead, its heart is unstable. Veer right into the dust cloud. Her empathic resonance, or whatever it was, seemed to give her a sixth sense for gravitational eddies, hidden dangers, even the faint electronic signatures of lurking guild technology. Her pheromonal shifts, which Kaelen was slowly beginning to recognize, would subtly underscore her words, a faint, sharp scent for danger, a softer, earthier one for a safe path. They were a bizarre, improvised team, his rugged piloting skills augmented by her ethereal senses. He found himself grudgingly relying on her, a crack forming in his armor of self-sufficiency. Resources dwindled with terrifying speed. Their emergency rations were almost gone, the water recycler struggling to extract moisture from the humid air. Kaelen meticulously divided what little they had. He was gruff, almost resentful about it, but scrupulously fair. Lyra observed his quiet, stubborn perseverance, the way he meticulously checked every system, refusing to give up even when faced with impossible odds. One evening cycle, as the dim emergency light simulated dusk, Lyra extended her hand. In her palm lay a small, iridescent scale shed from her arm. It glowed faintly, like a captured piece of moonlight. In my culture, she explained, her translated voice soft, when a path is shared under duress, when survival is communal, we offer a part of ourself, a token of the bond. It signifies shared breath, shared fate. Kaelen stared at the scale. It was beautiful, undeniably alien. His first instinct was to recoil. You want me to what? Wear this? Make a necklace. But he saw the sincerity in her large dark eyes, the vulnerability. This wasn't just some weird alien custom, it was an offering of trust, perhaps the only kind she knew how to give. Okay, space lizard lady, he said, his voice softer than he intended. He carefully took the scale. It was surprisingly warm, smooth. Don't expect a fingernail clipping in return just yet. Human customs are a bit less poetic. A faint, almost floral scent emanated from Lyra, a scent of approval, pleasure. He tucked the scale into a small pocket in his suit. The true nature of Lyra's burden, and her secrets, began to unravel during one of their enforced quiet periods, hiding deep within the asteroid belt. Kaelen awoke from a fitful doze to a strange sight. Lyra was seated, cross-legged, the cylindrical object, the Ark, as she'd called it, resting on her lap. A faint, shimmering energy, like heat haze mixed with starlight, pulsed around her. Her eyes were closed, her face etched with concentration, and that intense, multi-harmonic hum vibrated through the deck plates. He felt a peculiar tingling in his mind, like the edge of a dream he couldn't quite grasp. When the energy subsided, Lyra looked exhausted, her luminescence dimmed. She saw him watching, and a flicker of something shame, crossed her features. "I was trying to understand our pursuers," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "Understand them how?" Kaelen pressed, his skepticism warring with a dawning, uneasy comprehension. Slowly, haltingly, the story emerged. Lyra was not just a cultural observer. She was a sun singer, yes, but also something else. Something her people called a carry that a dream weaver. She could, under certain conditions, touch the dreaming minds of others, navigate their subconscious landscapes, and sometimes extract information. Or plant it. She confessed that the Chronos Guild hadn't just attacked the Stardust Drifter randomly. They had coerced her, using threats against her isolationist homeworld, Zelos. Her people, for all their unique abilities, were not a martial race. Their peaceful society vulnerable to the Guild's ruthless tactics. Lyra was heir to a faction on Zelos that sought cautious engagement with the wider galaxy, a stance that made her both a valuable asset and a potential dissident in the eyes of the Guild. Her mission for them, under duress, had been to retrieve specific data from the Stardust Drifter's deep archives, data the Guild believed would lead them to a legendary substance known as Corva Shadow, or Shadow Stuff, said to allow travel through normally impassable regions of space. The Ark of Souls she carried was her true secret burden. It wasn't just data or echoes in a metaphorical sense. It contained the actual conscious essences, the psychic imprints, of the last survivors of an ancient, gentle race called the Aurelians, who had entrusted their entire civilization's legacy to the Zelithians for safekeeping generations ago. The Guild, Lyra now feared, wanted the Ark not just for the Aurelian knowledge of the shadow substance, but perhaps for the souls themselves. Kaelen listened, a cold knot forming in his stomach. "So, you're all a dream thief," he said, the words tasting bitter. He felt a surge of anger, then looking at her pale, haunted face, something else, a reluctant empathy. She was a tool, a victim as much as he was. "They forced you." Lyra nodded, her gaze downcast. "My people, they value harmony above all. The Guild, they understand how to break it." Despite the grim revelations, Kaelen found a tiny, almost dead comms relay on their lifeboat. He spent hours coaxing it, bypassing fried circuits, his hope, that stubborn, illogical spark, refusing to die. "Someone's got to believe things can get better, right?" He muttered, more to himself than to Lyra. "Even when you're breathing your own CO2, and your co-pilot is a mind-reading alien carrying a ghost box." He talked about his own dreams, the ones that kept him going, of terraforming barren moons, coaxing life from dead dust, watching a sunrise on a world he'd helped awaken. "It's about potential," he said, looking at Lyra. Everyone has it, just needs the right conditions." His words seemed to resonate with her. "Potential," she echoed softly. "My people sing of the potential within every seed, every star, perhaps even within every ending. Their fragile truce, their growing understanding, was tested when a micrometeorite shower peppered their already damaged lifeboat. One shard pierced a minor coolant line near Lyra. A spray of super-chilled gas hit her arm. She cried out, a sound less human, more like a distressed musical instrument, a sharp, discordant chime. The luminescent patterns on her skin flared violently, then dimmed alarmingly. Kaelen rushed to her side. Her alien physiology was reacting badly to the coolant. Her skin was rapidly turning a bruised, mottled color. Her empathic resonance, usually a subtle hum, became a raw broadcast of pain and fear that Kaelen felt as a stabbing headache and a wave of nausea. He fought through his own discomfort, his ingrained skepticism about alien biology momentarily forgotten. He found the mech kit, his hands surprisingly steady, as he applied a universal sealant patch to the wound and a thermal blanket around her. Her skin felt unnaturally cold, yet there was a strange, vibrational energy to it. He stayed with her, monitoring her vitals on her suit's display, talking to her in low tones, nonsense mostly, anything to fill the silence, to push back the fear he felt reflected from her. As she slowly stabilized, the intensity of her pain broadcast lessened. In its place, Kaelen felt a faint, tentative warmth, a pulse of gratitude. He realized he was still holding her hand. Her fingers, long and cool, curled slightly around his. In the dim light, their eyes met. The vastness of space, the threat of the Guild, the desperation of their situation all seemed to fade for a moment, replaced by a connection that was purely undeniably them. He saw not just an alien, but Lyra. And in her eyes, he hoped she saw not just a skeptical human, but Kaelen. A shared glance, heavy with unspoken emotions, stretched between them. The air in the tiny lifeboat seemed to grow warmer, charged with a new, unspoken tension. Her pheromones, he noticed, had shifted again, a subtle, sweet scent, like night-blooming flowers on a world he'd never seen. It was surprisingly pleasant. He found himself captivated by the way the faint starlight caught the iridescent sheen of her hair, the delicate curve of her neck. His heart, he realized, was beating a little faster for reasons that had nothing to do with lack of oxygen. Their precarious sanctuary in the asteroid belt couldn't last. The Chronos Guild, relentless and efficient, eventually picked up their faint trail. Collector Vix, the Guild's regional commander, was a name whispered with fear. He was known for his chilling calm, his surgical precision in extracting what he wanted, be it information, artifacts, or lives. They were forced to flee, their lifeboat barely holding together, pushing its failing engines to their absolute limit. They made for a known rogue trading post, a lawless haven called Port Nowhere, hoping to find parts, a new ship, anything. But the Guild was waiting. As they limped into the chaotic asteroid cluster that housed Port Nowhere, two Guild destroyers decloaked, their weapons locking on. A chillingly polite voice, amplified and devoid of emotion, cut through their comms. Lyra'nova of Zelos, Kaelen Vance of Terra, your journey ends here. Surrender the Ark of Souls, and your deaths will be efficient. It was Collector Vix. The stakes had escalated terrifyingly. Vix didn't just want the Ark for its knowledge of the shadow substance. Lyra felt a cold dread emanate from his broadcasted presence. He wanted to possess the Aurelian souls, to dissect their ancient wisdom, perhaps even to weaponize their collective consciousness. The shadow substance itself, the Ark whispered to Lyra in a chorus of faint, concerned thought voices, was more than just a means of travel. It was a key to manipulating the fabric of reality, a power the progenitors had hidden for fear of its misuse. Vix, it seemed, had no such fears. Trap outgunned with nowhere to run, desperation sparked a dangerous idea. Kaelen, Lyra said, her voice tight, made my dream weaving. I can try to confuse them. Plant discord. Fear? Kaelen recoiled. Mess with their minds, Lyra, that's invasive, dangerous. For you, too. He'd seen how drained she'd been before. It is our only chance, she insisted, her eyes pleading. To create a diversion. Long enough for us two to do something. He looked at her, at the grim set of her jaw, the courage shining through her fear. His skepticism warred with the undeniable truth of their situation. All right, he said slowly. But how? You can't just project thoughts at a warship. I need amplification, she said. A focus. Your technology, can you build something? To channel my song? Kaelen, the terraforming specialist, found himself staring at the schematics of his jury-rigged comms array. It was a long shot, but maybe, just maybe, he could adapt it to broadcast her unique resonant frequencies on a wider, more focused band. It would require her to trust him implicitly, to link her mind, her very essence, to his makeshift device. Before they began this perilous gambit, Lyra performed a ritual Kaelen now understood held profound meaning for her people. She carefully pricked her finger with the sharp edge of a broken instrument panel. A single drop of her blood, glowing like a tiny, captured star, welled up. She touched it to a small, smooth piece of metal she'd salvaged, a substitute for the ceremonial leaf she didn't have. She held it out to him. Kaelen Vance, she said, her voice resonating with a depth of emotion that vibrated through him. This is my essence, my song offered freely. A bond of choosing. In Zelithian, we call it Telshera heart thread. Kaelen, moved beyond words, felt his usual cynicism melt away. This was more than a ritual. It was a testament to the incredible journey they'd shared, the trust they'd forged in the crucible of disaster. He took a deep breath, then carefully made a small cut on his own palm with his utility knife. He pressed his bloodied palm against hers, against the glowing drop. All right, Lyra'nova, he said, his voice thick. Tell Shara, for better or worse. Let's give them a show they won't forget. As their blood mingled, a wave of warmth spread from their joined hands. Lyra's pheromonal signature shifted, enveloping him in an aroma that was intensely personal, intoxicatingly sweet, a scent of pure, undiluted affection and trust. It was a confession without words and acceptance. The process of linking Lyra to the modified comms array was delicate and tense. Kaelen monitored her vital signs, her neural frequencies, his heart pounding. As Lyra began to sing into the device, her eyes closed, her face a mask of concentration, Kaelen felt a profound mental connection open between them. It wasn't just empathy now, it was a shared space, a brief, dazzling glimpse into her mind. He saw images of Zelos, its bioluminescent forests, its serene, silver cities. He felt her deep love for her people, her fear for their safety, her hopes for their future. And in turn, she seemed to feel his unwavering, sometimes bull-headed hope, the loneliness he usually kept hidden, and the burgeoning, fierce affection he felt for her. The effect on the guild ships was immediate and chaotic. Alarms blared across their comm channels. Shouts of confusion, panic. Lyra was weaving a tapestry of nightmare and doubt directly into the minds of the guild crew's false sensor readings, phantom ships, whispers of mutiny, paralyzing fear. Engines sputtered. Weapon systems went offline. When Lyra finally collapsed back, gasping, her luminescence faint, Kaelen was there to catch her. Her energy was depleted, but a triumphant, wary smile touched her lips. He held her close, the adrenaline of the battle fading, replaced by an overwhelming tenderness. "You did it," he whispered, his lips brushing her temple. "You magnificent, crazy, song-weaving alien." She looked up at him, her dark eyes searching his. "Kaelen." He didn't need words. He leaned down and kissed her. It was a kiss born of desperation, of shared survival, of a connection that transcended species and circumstance. Her lips were soft, warm, tasting faintly of starlight and that intoxicating floral scent. He felt the thrum of her empathic resonance, a direct current of emotion, relief, affection, a dawning joy flowing into him. It was overwhelming, terrifying, and utterly wonderful. When they finally broke apart, breathless, the universe outside seemed to hold its breath. "I never thought," Kaelen began, his voice rough. "With an alien do." Lyra's fingers traced the line of his jaw. "Your hope, Kaelen," she said, her voice a soft melody. "It is a song my heart wishes to learn. And you are more than I ever imagined human could be." Their feelings, raw and undeniable, were finally out in the open, a fragile bloom in the harsh vacuum of space. The diversion, though successful in sowing chaos among the guild ships, bought them little time. Collector Vix, Kaelen suspected, was not so easily deterred. They had to make a strategic move, something drastic. The Ark of Souls, sensing Lyra's distress and their shared peril, seemed to pulse with a faint, internal light. Lyra, her hand resting on the cylinder, suddenly gasped. "Kaelen, the Ark. It shows me a path. A memory." On a salvage data slate, a faint, shimmering star chart fragment materialized, projected from the Ark. It pointed to a system deep within a notoriously unstable nebula, a place most star charts marked as unnavigable extreme gravitational anomalies. The destination a rogue planet, ominously named Graviton's Maw, the Aurelians. Lyra whispered, her eyes wide. This was their last refuge, or perhaps their first. The shadow substance, it's hidden there. They believed it was the only place it could be safely contained. It was an insane gamble. Graviton's Maw was a legend, a place ships went to die. But it was also, potentially, their only chance to secure the shadow substance before Vix did, and perhaps find something, anything, to turn the tide. "Then that's where we go," Kaelen said, his jaw set. "Looks like our joyride isn't over yet." They managed to scavenge a barely functional short-range shuttle from the chaos of Port Nowhere, its hull scarred, its engines coughing, but it was space-worthy. Barely. As they plotted their desperate course, a tight beam transmission reached them, miraculously cutting through the guild's jamming. It was from Zelos, from Lyra's faction. They had been tracking her, trying to reach her. The message was fragmented but chilling. They confirmed the guild's interest in the shadow substance, but also revealed its true, terrifying potential. It wasn't just a star drive component. In its raw, unrefined state, it could be weaponized to unravel local space-time, to collapse entire realities into an entropic state, effectively archiving them as pure information, Vix's ultimate form of collection. The progenitor race had hidden it for this very reason, fearing its catastrophic power. The stakes were no longer just personal. They were galactic. Their flight to Graviton's Maw was a harrowing chase. Vix, his command ship repaired and his fury palpable, was hot on their heels. They plunged into the roiling, electrified clouds of the Umbral Nebula, the shuttle groaning under the strain. Kaelen, drawing on every bit of his piloting skill, weaved through gravitational shears and pockets of distorted space. Lyra, beside him, acted as his navigator and early warning system, her empathic senses heightened by the bizarre energies of the nebula, calling out dangers before they even registered on their failing sensors. Despite their efforts, a guild volley caught their stern. Alarms shrieked. The shuttle spiraled out of control, plummeting towards the angry, mottled surface of Graviton's maw. Kaelen fought the controls, Lyra bracing herself beside him, their hands instinctively finding each other in the chaos. They crash-landed, hard, in a valley choked with crystalline formations that hummed with an unnatural energy. They were alive, but stranded on one of the most hostile planets in the known galaxy, and the Chronos Guild was landing too. Kaelen, drawing on his terraforming expertise, quickly analyzed the planet's bizarre atmosphere, a toxic cocktail of heavy gases, subject to sudden, crushing gravity fluxes and storms that warped light and sound. He modified their environment suits, reinforcing seals, adding emergency grav compensators. Lyra, meanwhile, listened to the planet's song, a discordant, powerful symphony of immense forces. "This world, it is in pain," she murmured, "but also immensely strong. There is a heart somewhere, a point of stability." They knew Vix would be searching for the progenitor ruin, the likely hiding place of the shadow substance. They had to get there first. Their trust in each other, forged in fire and desperation, was now their greatest weapon. The landscape of Graviton's maw was a surreal nightmare. Twisted rock formations clawed at a sky bruised purple and green by roiling, electrified clouds. Gravity shifted unpredictably, one moment crushing them into the ground, the next threatening to fling them into the toxic atmosphere. Crystalline shards, razor-sharp, littered the ground, humming with stored energies. Kaelen led the way, his suit's external sensors working overtime, his boots equipped with micro-grapples for the treacherous terrain. Lyra followed, her senses stretched taut, feeling out the invisible currents of gravitational stress, the ebb and flow of the planet's strange energies. "There," she'd point, "pressure wave is coming. We must take cover." Or, "The crystals to our left, they sing with a false harmony. A trap." They spotted guild patrols, black-clad figures moving with unnatural speed, their forms occasionally distorting as they passed through localized spatial warps. Kaelen and Lyra moved like ghosts, using the bizarre terrain and their combined wits to evade detection. After what felt like an eternity of tense trekking, they founded a colossal, cyclopean ruin, half buried in a vast canyon, unmistakably progenitor architecture. Its scale was humbling, its age unimaginable, and at its entrance, already setting up excavation equipment, were Collector Vix and his elite agents. "Showtime," Kaelen muttered, checking the charge on his plasma cutter, repurposed as a makeshift weapon. Lyra nodded, her hand resting on the Ark of Souls, which pulsed with a steady, determined rhythm against her side. The confrontation was brutal and chaotic. Kaelen, using his knowledge of geophysics, triggered a series of controlled explosions with charges scavenged from their shuttle, bringing down unstable rockfalls, separating Vix from some of his troops. He laid down covering fire with his plasma cutter, the bolts of energy sizzling against the guild's energy shields. Lyra, no longer just a gentle sun singer, became a force of nature. She unleashed her empathic abilities with devastating precision, not to harm, but to incapacitate. Waves of disorienting fear washed over groups of guild soldiers, sending them reeling in confusion. Targeted pheromonal bursts, amplified by a small device Kaelen had jury-rigged from her suit's comms, caused temporary neural overload in others, making them stumble, their weapons clattering to the ground. She was a whirlwind of focused intent, her usual serenity replaced by a fierce protectiveness. But Vix was no ordinary soldier. He seemed immune to Lyra's psychic assaults, his mind a fortress of cold ambition. He moved with chilling speed, deflecting Kaelen's shots, and before they knew it, he had Lyra a force blade at her throat. "The Ark, Sun Singer," Vix hissed, his voice like graveyard dust. "Unlock its deepest secrets. Show me the path to the shadow substance, or your song ends here." Lyra, pinned and struggling, looked at Kaelen, her eyes filled not with fear for herself, but with a desperate warning. The Ark of Souls, sensing her imminent danger and Vix's rapacious intent, suddenly flared with an intense, pure white light. It wasn't an attack, it was an opening. A torrent of raw, unfiltered consciousness, the combined memories, emotions, joys, and sorrows of the entire Aurelian race, poured forth, not into the physical world, but directly into Vix's mind. He screamed a raw, agonized sound, dropping Lyra as he clutched his head. He saw millennia of Aurelian history, felt their love for life, their peaceful philosophy, and then their devastating sorrow as their civilization faced extinction. He experienced the weight of 1,000 dying suns, the grief of 1,000,000,000 lost souls. It was too much for one mind, however disciplined, however cruel, to bear. Vix crumpled to his knees, his eyes wide with a terror that was no longer his own, but the collective anguish of a murdered people. In that moment of chaos, a section of the ruined floor fractured, revealing a swirling vortex of non-space beneath the shadow substance contained within an ancient progenitor device. It pulsed with an oily black light, distorting reality around its edges. Kaelen saw his chance. "Lyra, the containment field. Can you stabilize it?" Lyra, though weakened, scrambled towards the vortex. She began to sing, not a song of fear or confusion, but one of pure, unwavering harmony, a Zelithian song of binding and stability. Her voice, amplified by the Ark, resonated with the progenitor device, trying to reinforce its ancient wards. Kaelen knew he had to act. He could try to destroy the substance, but the resulting explosion of warped space could tear the planet apart, and them with it. Or he could try to reseal it, bury it deeper. He grabbed a heavy-duty mining laser from a fallen guild operative, aiming it at the structurally compromised ceiling of the